Hey, what's up? So I came across this comic book series I just started reading last night. There's a bundle on fanatical.com. I forgot to look it up real quick. I was in a rush to get this started because like I'm sitting here going through a bunch of bull crap. Anyways, so there's this the book bundle on Fanatical is called Twisted Comics Bundle. It's $5, pretty good deal. I'm not sure when it ends. But I was looking at like the description, right? Like the little about thing. And they compare it to stuff like the Twilight Zone or Black Mirror and Tales of the Unexpected. I'm not familiar with Tales of the Unexpected at all. Twilight Zone was very popular when I was a kid for adults. I never got into the Twilight Zone. I probably saw like one or two episodes. It's from what I remember, it was more like an adult themed type show. Um, I there when I was younger and I'd heard of the Twilight Zone, I was able, I think Amazing Stories was like a family version of the Twilight Zone, if I remember right. I could it's whatever, it could be just a thing. I never really watched Twilight Zone. It was already old by the time I was a kid. And then Amazing Stories was newer, I think. There's a show called Amazing Stories. That was pretty cool. But anyway, so since they compared it to those things, like I've heard things about Black Mirror. I haven't watched a lot. I watched like one or two episodes. But I do like the style of that kind of thing, right? So since it was compared to that, I was like, oh, well, I mean, they got this bundle for $5. Like, you know what? I love comic books. I love stories. So I'm gonna buy this and check it out. And I read three stories so far, and I'm gonna talk about the third story. And I'm currently on the fourth story. I started it, but I haven't finished it. I liked the intro to this story. This is by Neil Gibson. Oh yeah, I forgot. These are all like little short stories. The intro to the graphic novel by the comic writer and I think artist. I'm not even sure. Does he do the? I guess he just does the writing. Okay, he does the writing. The intro for the writing is actually it's pretty funny. It's just fun because he's comparing himself to Mel Gibson because their names are similar. Neil Gibson and Mel Gibson. It's a funny little introduction thing to the graphic novel. So I thought this was interesting. This story specifically talks about as of 2011, there are more human slaves alive than at any time in human history. And I imagine they're probably not even referring to Americans or the system of the economy, money, low wages, stuff like that. Because a lot of people don't even seem to think of that. I have my whole life. That's what makes me so angry because I've seen it that way for my entire life. I've been working minimum wage for my whole life. So, but I didn't realize a lot of stuff. I didn't realize when I was younger that almost all of my friends were middle class. They all inherited everything they got: their homes, their cars, their jobs. They got all that inherited. So and I never gave it much thought, because they were just my friends. They were cool people, they're all cool people. But I'm older and I was thinking back to all these things and I'm like, why didn't people understand? Why do people just never understand like about being poor and stuff? Like it's just the weirdest thing. Part of it is brainwashing. Part of it is people just constantly lying to you, the so-called experts and the authority lying to people saying, oh yeah, no, that's fine. You're just thinking about it wrong. You should appreciate what you have and not that we're screwing you over and exploiting the living crap out of you for your entire existence. No, we're not doing that. No, so everybody's either they're perfectly fine and we're born middle class and come up in it, or they're in poverty and they're brainwashed and stupid. Some people I have seen and heard stories talking about like homeless people. There are some homeless people that love being homeless, and I've thought about it. I'm like, it's not even like I think the freedom of homelessness is a kind of slightly enticing. Like there's just a freedom there, right? Like no worries, nothing. You're just kind of like whatever, right? Like because I've always liked the idea of just walking the earth, just walking, just going on a long walk, just like hey, I'm gonna travel. I'm just gonna walk, man. Like whatever. But the thought of not having a comfortable home is not a motivational thing to me, and I'm not like, oh, let me go be homeless. I'm like, this is just dumb to me though. Like, but if some stories are true, some people do enjoy it, and I don't know, man. I think if they had a real choice, they would pick living in a home. I think if there was a real choice, they wouldn't have convinced themselves that, oh yeah, being homeless is so great, you know, like whatever. Although one thing that I've always been confused by about homelessness is like, why do people just stay in one spot, especially when it gets cold? Like if you're homeless, wouldn't you migrate like with the birds or something, right? Wouldn't you migrate to a warmer climate? Like I've been out in the cold because I have to, just to go to and from work and stuff. And when it is under 30 degrees, just 30, dude, 30 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. I always forget about like what that is in Celsius or whatever. But it's painfully cold. And underneath 30, dude, I've been in 12-degree weather outside my job waiting to go in. It is painful. It's painful cold, man. Like it's nuts. I've also been in -1-degree weather. Didn't know it at the time. We just were out there in the blizzard and we didn't realize, because like it didn't start as we didn't go into a blizzard. We were out and then a blizzard happened and that was nuts, man. I couldn't move. I was like, dude, just open the car and let me in, because I could not move. I was standing out. I just could not move. That was nuts. Anyways, so you know, it's just funny. I'm just like, why don't the homeless like migrate? You know, like that's weird. Anyways, just a weird thought. So what's crazy, what was interesting to me about this intro in the very bottom line is like how they're still slaves, you know, and you know, whatever, the more human slaves alive than any time in human history as of 2011. Now I don't know if that's my first guess is like that's probably just part of the story. It could be a factoid that he picked up somewhere. I don't know. I don't need to look it up. I believe that that's probably the case, because to me, currency is slavery. The way that the wages and everything, the economy works, is slavery for anybody that's actually just like part of the minimum wage force. You know, to me is a normal job. That's a normal job, not like career stuff. Career stuff is middle class and upper. That's not normal to me. It's normal to others. It's normal to the people in that position, right? No, having no money is normal to me. Anyways, so I don't know. I don't know if that's an actual fact that he had looked up or heard or read or whatever. And that's another thing too, is like even if it was a factoid or whatever, some kind that you could look up, I don't trust any numbers for anything. I know that as far as I see it, yes, slavery is a real thing. I have no doubt it's worse somewhere else. I don't think I have a nice home, man. Like I'm like I know I'm good for being screwed. But you know, I imagine it's probably where, I mean, my job, I'm pretty sure they run a sweatshop, just from some of the stuff that we have had shipped to us, especially in the past few months. I don't know why, but stuff has gotten really stinky. It just smells like sweat. It's like in the product. It's specifically our clothes that we sell. And just before you even open the box, you can smell it. And then you open the box and it's just like, did they like wrap themselves, like, you know, dry their sweat off with the clothes and just throw it in the box and then shipped it, right? Like that's what it seems like. And I could be wrong, but it's such a horrible stench. And it's I can still smell it. Stuff we got like a month ago, I can still smell that when I go put the clothes on the shelves. It's so gross, dude. It's so bad. Anyways, and you know, some people would say they're not slaves, they're paid $1 an hour or 50 cents an hour or whatever, right? Like whatever. That's why I don't get into that kind of a thing exactly. I imagine it's possible that is like a real wage somewhere or whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that, like, you know, $12 an hour or $14 an hour or whatever. I've never known a minimum wage in my normal jobs throughout my life to be a so-called living wage. That's never been a real thing to me. A living wage to me would be the middle class, the upper class, you know, with their $30, $50 an hour jobs and stuff like that. Living wage. You can actually live. You can actually have choice. You actually have some money, you know. But anyways, so I didn't even mean to say all that. It was just part of what my thoughts were on towards this. And it is sad to me to think about like somebody having it worse off than myself and others that have, you know, been screwed by a part-time minimum wage economy stuff, whatever. But what was crazy to me about this story, so this story starts about a poor dude. And how the story starts. This is just a regular worker guy. He grew up poor, was always poor, and he ends up getting a job. He knows that he got into this contract work, and he gets completely screwed by it, right? The normal stuff is just normal, like a normal stupid crappy job that underpays and screws you over and whatever, right? And his situation a little different than my own. I've never been in a part where like they're sharing toilet space. It's 30 people in a single bedroom. Like I've heard these and seen these stories before. And it's possible they're true. I'd rather them not be, and I'd like to think they're not. It's weird to think about it like that, because it's like I said, like yeah, it could be worse. Like it drives me nuts when people say that. You know what? It should be better. So just stop with your bull crap. Just stop your lies. Stop your nonsense. Stop your brainwashing. It could be worse. Yeah, no duh. Anyways, so the story is about this poor dude does normal jobs, normal work, and then one day he just gets sick and tired of it, right? He's like, all right, we're screwed. You guys are not cool. Like, this is terrible. Our working conditions are terrible. And somehow his story gets to the news. I forget, it's part of the story. I just read it last night. But his story gets to the news, and because the news find out, like the world news or whatever, like in other parts of the world, because his story gets picked up and people are talking about it, he ends up leading like kind of a revolution, like a little mini one, a wage one, not a revolution, but a wage change thing, right? They get better wages, they get benefits and whatever, right? So, and part of it, he's doing this cool speech telling them like, we need to be treated better or whatever, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna be together, unity, la la la, and then there's this little part here, Minnie wanted violence, so they're like, yeah, let's destroy them, let's break the machines, and he's like, no, we're just gonna do this peacefully, and of course. And that was number one red flag to me. I'm just like, no, this doesn't make sense. It's one thing, like, I get it. Realistically, no violence makes sense. Realistic. I've talked about this in my Squid Game video. I've talked about it in other videos too. It's like, that's a thing. Like, if you go that way, it's not gonna be what you want, right? Like, it's anyways, no, so I understand the no violence argument. Like, I understand it. I just, like, if you know what these people have done, you have to understand why people would want violence. You have to understand that that's the first thing to address and know. Like, yes, we know you want to kill these people, but realistically, think about it. Like, hold back a little bit. Let's see what we can do for real. Unless you actually want to go be a vigilante and can be, and that's your own right. Like. Different thing. But if you're talking about like in the sense of wages and trying to make things better inside of these things, then no violence makes sense, right? No, I'd rather destroy them all, like obliterate them like they obliterated my soul. So anyways, yeah, so he ends up leading this group into getting better wages, better stuff for their job. But the ending made no sense to me, man. So what's funny about these stories so far, the first two were really good. Very first one was really short, like 7 pages or something, and had a very sad ending. It was already a sad story. It's a story about suicide, like having suicidal thoughts. It was already a sad story, but the ending, I was like, oh, come on, man. But I was like, yeah, I mean, I can believe it. Like, but very short, dark tales, right? So that's the point of these. And that was while I was reading this story, I'm like, how is this supposed to end up bad? This doesn't make any sense, right? Like, so that was what I was waiting for. I'm like, all right, where's this going? Because I know it's supposed to be dark and twisted, right? So they go in this like weird ass way of like, people follow him. He's a leader now, and then he ends up being the bad guy. And apparently, like, let's see here, he's pleased with what he achieved, sabotaging the pump. So he did these things to screw with things to make the protests happen. He paid off key supporters, encouraged rodents to go through whatever their workplace and stuff, right? Like getting rodents to go through the store, like whatever, man. Like, let's say he let loose a bunch of rats in their place just to start up all this crazy whatever, right? Just so that he could be a leader. And then the final page is like the crowd hadn't even put him down when he started planning what he would do next with his new power. So he's just an evil dude, like leading good people to do something good, get better wages, get better treatment, and then he's planning his next. That was how it ended. It makes no sense. It's so that's so I wanted to talk about that, and some of the stuff I said I didn't mean to. I just kind of related ish in my thoughts and whatever, but I wanted to see. I was like, am I weird? Is like, am I crazy, or does this just make no sense and is just dumb? Like, because I was thinking, I was like, well, the only way this would make sense to me is if he was never a poor person and his story started with a lie, kind of like AOC being a bartender. Fake story. You don't have to believe me on that. If you want, try to look into it. That's funny stuff. I mean, you think, like, for real, like, if Netflix documentary on it, like, fake lies, man. Anyways, so that makes more sense to me if the whole story from the beginning was a lie and he never really was poor and he literally just did all this stuff just to be a leader, kind of like co-opting like a movement. Like there's some I'd have to make whatever. I don't want to think on that. But if you understand like how co-ops happen, right, with the movements and how they end up being bad, like and run by bad people, they start fine, but then somebody else comes in and just ruins everything, right? It's a very normal thing. It's very normal. You got to be careful if you're actually trying to do it, but you got to know, you got to recognize and spot that it's going to happen. It's going to happen unless you can keep it from happening. But it happens every time. Like every movement gets co-opted, man. So that was the only way that would have made sense to me if he was never actually poor, didn't grow up poor, because it doesn't make, like, why would I'm thinking like I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't, like, if I were to end up being a leader and help a freaking group of people. Me, we got it together. We did something to make our job better and wages better and benefits and whatever, right? I can't even talk about it realistically because I've never seen that happen in my entire life. I see it in the news. I hear stories about, oh, we got these what do they call them? I forget what the hell they're called at the moment. It's I can't remember the damn word for it. Anyways, it's part of jobs and having better pay and whatever. So I hear stories, but I've never experienced a job getting better. I've never experienced that ever in my life, not ever. So I can't even imagine that. Like I see the stories, I'm like, whatever. I've never, like, show me that's real. It's unions, right? Like companies unionizing. It's hilarious to me when I see like big companies unionizing, like Ubisoft. You'll see these stories about, ooh, Ubisoft unionized. Oh yeah, good for them. Whatever. I don't care. Blizzard unionized. Okay, yeah. You know what's really funny about that to me is it was around 2020 or 2021, maybe 2019. It was in that period-ish. But there was a Starbucks that unionized. And so this was during a voting period, during these like protests and all this stuff, I think that was actually probably during BLM as well. I don't know. All that bled for me, man. It was all the same. But there was a Starbucks that unionized and nobody followed up. I was looking for the story. I wasn't researching it. I kept an eye out for it. I was like, please get a follow-up to this story because I've seen it all the time throughout my life. Unions come up, they'll talk about, oh, they unionize, right? They're all like, yeah. Some random ass person will point out, well, is it going to stay? They're probably going to just lay them all off. And it's exactly what happens every time. And that Starbucks that everybody made this big deal out of, it was in the stories. People were talking about it and online and but I'd seen it in the news too. It was being talked about. But yeah, this is a Starbucks store unionized, and they show this like teenager, like, yeah, we did it, whatever kind of stuff. But no, I think like a month or two later, you find out that they closed that store. The entire store got shut down, and they relocated, and they just opened up a new Starbucks like a block away. And that is a story I had heard when I was a kid. Same stuff every time. It's just someone unionizes, and then they just get shut down and start a little thing over here, I like, okay. But anyways, but you never see that discussed in the, like, that's why I was like, when I saw, like I said, I wasn't like deep research trying to make sure that I was keeping up to it. But when I saw that story, I was like, all right, at least I got to see that, yes, exactly what I expected would happen did happen. And not because I'm selling, because I'm like, I wonder every time I see a story, like, I'm like, how come people never talk about this stuff and never get real about it? Like, you only hear the good stuff before the bad stuff happens. You never hear about the bad stuff after it happens. Nobody talks about it. Like, it's just, here's a possible good thing, but it never follows through, and nobody ever talks about that not following through. Like, it's just weird to me. Anyways, so yeah, so this story was a trip to me. It was I don't understand it. Like, I just don't, like, the dude helped people, and the company actually got, but that's how the story goes. It's not like they unionized and then it got shut down or whatever. Of course, it doesn't go further into it, but the whole point is this guy, and leads people to get this good thing to happen for them, and he becomes their leader, and they're all like, yeah, you're our hero, and we're gonna follow you into anything. And then he's like, yeah, ooh, now I'm gonna abuse my power. It's like, what? So I just thought that was very, very strange, man. So I wanted to share it and talk about it and see if maybe you have any thoughts on that, because I think it's possible that this would happen. But it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, it makes far more sense if the whole story from the beginning was a lie. He never was poor. He was probably rich starting out, and just decided to pretend, role play being poor, that kind of a thing. Like, that makes more sense to me than just like some dude that was poor, screwed his whole life, ends up, in this good situation, and then is like, ha, look at me with my power, It's like what? It's just, but as far as the graphic novel itself and the story, it is meant to be bad. But like, the first two stories I read, they weren't dark and twisted because of something light. They were just dark and twisted, like in a sad way, in a very, like, understandable and relatable way to me. I can understand these things, and I'm just like, that's very sad. I get it though, but like, this was weird. This one didn't make sense. I'm curious. I'm planning to read more probably right after I'm gonna go eat a snack, but I'm gonna read more soon. I haven't, I just started the graphic novel, and I do like it so far. Glad I picked it up, and for $5 I would recommend it. Like, I'll put a link to it in the description to this bundle, and if I might remember to remove the link when the sale ends, but I might not. So if the link doesn't work whenever you catch this video, the sale probably ended or whatever. But it's still going right now as I'm recording and going to upload this and whatever. So do check it out if you want. Anyways, let me know what you think about some of that stuff. I know I did say a little too much. I didn't mean to. I didn't even mean for this to go as long as it has. I just kind of blabbed on that, and it was, that's part of it though. I kind of like doing stuff like this. Like, I know it's harder to watch. I think it is anyways, but I like to ramble my thoughts related to things I'm thinking about or looking at and that kind of stuff, because this just seemed like the weirdest propaganda to me. It was just I was like, what? That doesn't even make any, like, something's wrong here. All right, anyways, I'm gonna go. Bye bye.